sure enough, that night, their buyer comes over to me and says, Grant, Mark said I should come talk to you. We're going to bring you in statewide.
How big of a risk was that for you as the business owner? It seems like a sizable leap, even if things were going well.
From early on, our internal kind of joke mission was, we just want to grow old making beer together. And I think that's kind of continued.
How often do you drink beer, and do you have to put any guardrails on yourself?
I think like most of us who grew up in Wisconsin, when I went to college, I promptly left and said, with my tunnel vision on, I'm never coming back. And I was down in Chicago and I loved it and had actually just gotten a job with Google in the Chicago office. And then I got a call from my dad. We had a small precast concrete plant in Kiel, and our head engineer got sick. So he was out, and my father was an engineer. He asked me if I could come back for a few months and help out while they figured things out. And he's a smart guy. He knew he had me for a while. So 5 years later, I'm running this concrete plant in Kiel, and I love the small business side of it. It was a lot of fun. The getting to do everything: engineering, sales, marketing, the works. But I just hated concrete. It just wasn't for me. So started kind of doing some soul searching, talking to my wife Heather at the point of like, well, what do we do? And finally, we just realized we just need to get out first, and then we'll figure it out. So got the courage to tell my dad I was leaving, and he was a good father first, just making sure I wasn't making a terrible life choice in doing it, and helped him sell the business because he didn't want to get back into the driver's seat of the concrete side, and worked for the new company for a little while and just kind of tried to figure out what was the next step. And my wife, to her credit, said at one point, have you ever thought about starting a brewery? I'd been homebrewing for a while at that point, and of course I had, but it felt way too selfish to even mention starting a brewery because it just seemed like such a cool, fun thing that would be for me. And we talked more and more about it and realized it hit everything that I love doing about manufacturing, because that's, end of the day, I love making something tangible. At the end of the day, you can touch it and feel it. Beer is so creative. It works towards that. And we had an opportunity with an old brew pub that we used to go to and loved being at. They went under. So we were able to buy the equipment there and start making beer in Sheboygan. And that's how it all started.
What was the initial vision? How did you come up with the name Three Sheeps? Did you think you'd expand? Were you trying to do a local brew pub? How did you go about things?
So we started off a little differently than most. We didn't have a tap room for the first 5 or 6 years. It was just a packaging brewery, 10-barrel system. We would make.
Does anyone else do that? Do you know of any other small craft breweries that have done that? That seems like the reverse of everyone else.
I can't say.
And the more difficult route to go and generate cash flow.
I can't say I've ever heard of anyone else doing it, nor would I recommend it. But I think for us it worked out well because it let us really focus on making batch after batch. And taproom money, when you first have it, you're selling directly to customers, so it's the high margins are higher, and it lets you, I don't want to say survive more easily, but we really had to make sure that we were dialed in and that our batches were cost effective, and we were getting out there and selling and having to be very aggressive from day one. And it worked out well. We were selling our beer across Wisconsin right off the bat, and it let us kind of keep growing and also honing exactly what we wanted to do because, like I said, we called ourselves Three Sheeps Brewing. When we first started off our first round of branding, it was very, we had the sheep imagery on it, and it was more cartoony than I would ever want to admit to. And it really didn't, we didn't really have an identity, but I think because we had to keep making beer over and over and making sure that we were competing, because now we're competing on the shelves against the Lagunitas, all these national brands, it's not just our own space. We had to mature quickly. And I think we're way better off because of it, because that was our sole focus, putting beer into bars and restaurants.
You said you were selling beer across the state very quickly. How did that happen? I feel like it's hard to break through in distribution.
Yeah, like most good conversations, it started at a bar where we ran into a distributor. And I talked with the gentleman who had become our brand manager, and we've worked together for the last 12 years, and just had a great chat about what we thought about beer, what our priorities both were, and we realized that they were very aligned. So 2 days later, I met with the president of the company, and we talked with their other craft specialists, and we decided that we would go through them right off the bat. So we started distributing through a distributor right away, which again worked well for us because I was always passionate, and I still today think, you have your lane. Like, we are very good at making beer. We're not necessarily good at delivering, distributing beer. We want great partners for that sort of thing. So while we were a small team at first, it was just 2 or 3 of us. We had 100 sales reps now through a distributor that were out there every day, selling beer to accounts and then taking care of those accounts, making sure that the shelf stayed full, making sure that they had the signage they needed, making sure that we were doing everything we could to support them for them bringing our beer in. And it worked out well, but that's how we kind of got the leg up right off the bat.
Was it a struggle keeping up with demand initially at that point?
It ebbed and flowed.
So you were the head brewer there?
Yes. Yeah, early on I was brewing all of our beer, but then we had great people join us that would rotate in, and especially early on when we were such a small team and there were 3 or 4 of us, we all did everything. We'd brew beer, we'd take turns, we'd all be on the packaging line, kegging, keg washing, you kind of name it. We just wanted to be very versatile so we could fill in if anyone, wanted to take a day of vacation, heaven forbid, or things like that. But yeah, it varied. I mean, there was definitely times when we hit these spikes 'cause early on. I mean, sometimes our spikes were, we'd have 100% growth year over year, and it was not the easiest to figure out. But you put in the hours. I mean, we had an opportunity, and there's no way we were going to squander it, because you don't get so many opportunities out there.
Right. How did you come up with the name Three Sheeps? There are some sheep in the Sheboygan area.
There are some.
You see them over at Kohler.
Correct. It was more about frivolity, I guess. Coming from construction, where it was a very serious industry, and I was definitely grouchy Grant for a lot of it. Just because you kind of it was through the Great Recession too when we had the place, so there wasn't a lot of work, and it seemed like everyone was just angry at everybody. And I really wanted to shake that off and kind of not let that be a part of what this was going to be. So I thought naming ourselves after a fluffy, grammatically incorrect sheep was a pretty good way to not take things too seriously. We're, like we say now, we're serious about the beer, but nothing else. Things happen, we put out fires, everything else, but we're still making beer. We appreciate that this is what we get to do for a living. So thank you for those who drink it, so we get to do this for a living. But yeah, I think we're making something that's very cool and special, and we don't want to forget that. And the name works well with that.
What were the biggest struggles or any crazy stories from the early years that you had to overcome?
Well, I mean, the one that was a lesson that sadly we learned, I think, a few times over is branding matters. When we kicked off with our more cartoony, comical sheep, we were just trying to get some good package that looked fancy out there, sort of thing. And we really didn't appreciate the importance of what that storytelling does and how that all connects. I think 12 years ago also, it doesn't matter as much as it does today, because it is so much more competitive, and there's so much more to what draws people to a brand and how they want to have their relationship. And beer is still a very romantic industry. I love that side of it. People want to have a connection to what they're drinking, and we've learned over the time of like how important that is and what that actually means to us, and how we want to relay that, and how we talk in our social media and our packaging and how we promote out in the marketplace. So that was definitely a big struggle. We went through, I think, 3 revisions until we finally got to a place where we feel like we are very comfortable. It's authentic.
3 different logos, essentially?
2 logos, but they're 3 kind of different iterations.
You had the old school one.
Right, we had the old school one, and then from old school one, we went to our new, but we went through a couple of versions of packaging in the middle of that, still with the old school label, whereas more the name of the beer focus. We took away a lot of the cartoon elements to what we were. But even that felt, was still kind of a Band-Aid to what we really needed to be. And it actually took, I hope I'm not jumping ahead too much. We opened up our new space, and we had this first big party. And I was kind of standing back looking around at, 300 people just really enjoying our beer, and realizing like our brand and how we speak just does not connect with what people are enjoying out of our product. And ended up at the same time, went to a bar, and this guy came up to me and goes, "Man, I really love your beer. I drink it at the bar all the time. But I never think to get in the store. Maybe you should do something about that." And like, all right, it's time. It's time to get serious here. We need to figure it out.
Where'd you land on the sheep you got now? When did that happen?
So sheep happened about 7 years ago. We started fresh with a good buddy of mine who actually quit his job and started a beer branding company. So they only work with breweries for branding and marketing purposes, and they're phenomenal at it. And he knew me so well too that, when I would be mumbling through, like, I think this is what we need for the brand, he says, "Well, Grant, what you really need is this." And I think that's what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, Matt, you got that right. Stout Collective, they're phenomenal. But yeah, so we started fresh, and we took it all the way down. We stripped everything back, saying, do we keep Three Sheeps? Yes. Okay. We started there, and then everything else kind of started from fresh. Like, who are we? What's important to us? What are our ethos? And let's just rebuild this thing from the get-go. And it was a great project. It took 6 months for us to really, really nail it. But I think now it just feels so much more authentic and true to who we are. And it's a whole lot easier now to speak and do our social and things like that, because we can have our fun and whimsy in there like we still want, but there's still like a authenticity to what our beer is and a kind of seriousness on that angle. And yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, branding's tough. You gotta do it right. You really, a lot goes into it, and there's no direct ROI correlation that you can see right out the gate. It's not like I'm running an ad campaign where, I put $1 in and get $2 out.
Correct.
But you can, yeah, I mean, after you put it out there, you can definitely start feeling it, and especially getting that feedback. And I think yours has come out great. I mean, it's very clean. It's fun. It's Wisconsin-y. I don't know if those are the things you're going for, but from an outside perspective.
Yeah, very much so. We definitely have, over the time leaned more into Wisconsin. We never intentionally didn't lean into Wisconsin, but it was more like we were, again, modeling ourselves after some of these national brands, thinking like, this is really how we should be speaking and talking, and realizing that's not who we are. We're just a bunch of individuals from Wisconsin who love our state. Like, let's lean into that, and let's bleed that out to the rest of the states that we hopefully will eventually get out to, and just let everyone see what Wisconsin can do. And that kind of confidence of just speaking Wisconsin was huge for us.
When did Wisconsinitis come about?
That was this.
I don't mean to turn this into a commercial, but this is a very, very good drinkable cream ale.
Thank you. That was
if you
February.
have Spotted Cow in your fridge, you can take it out and get some Wisconsinitis.
We'll appreciate
and the
that.
branding on this, kind of off the Wisconsin license plate. Very cool. I have a Wisconsinitis shirt I like wearing sometimes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That
right,
was.
I'm done with the mid-roll ad. You can.
That was brand new. It's only been out for 8 months, and it's great. It is already. I think it'll finish this year as our number 3 brand. I think it just resonates well. It was one of those beers that, you asked me 8 years ago, hey, are you gonna have a cream ale in your lineup? I would have said there's no way in hell. Like it, who I was back then, thinking like these are the type of craft beers I want to make. It didn't fit that mark. But
are you very beer snobby?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I gotta admit it. I'd say it's less snobby. I like beer to be crafted well. Balance. Like when there's defects in there, that's stuff that gets me. Diacetyl is a very simple one. You have this like buttery flavor. It's really easy for a brewery to test for it. You just need a microwave, so there's no cost, and you should be able to do it. And if you don't, it's just that appreciation of why are you okay putting this out to market? I think that's where my beer snobbery comes from.
Yeah.
We started off making our kind of lower ABV, or I'll call it, sessionable beers. Then we started playing around with some of the 8%ers, and then we started playing around with barrel-aged beers. And, for 3 or 4 years, we kept trying different barrel-aged beers in that process, and what we liked and what we didn't, and what we kind of thought was important for us when it comes to barrel aging. And in our old space, we only had so much room, because this was an old sock factory that, we kept all of our barrels on the 3rd floor. We had a crazy old freight elevator that we'd use to get up there. We could only put 2 barrels in there to crack, and it was a great building, but not a lot of space. So when we moved into our new building is when our barrel program really started to go crazy, and we could just really lean into it. I think now we'll have about 900 barrels filled in the next month of different spirit barrels, different base beers, things like that we'll be able to do out. And those are the really big kind of boutique-y ones that we have a great following for, and a lot of good friends who enjoy drinking those and buying those. So that's one part of it. But then our core things that go for us day to day are still just our easy drinkers. The beers that you can have 3 of. And that's what's going to drive us kind of forward, and what we're also, I think, more passionate about. Not that, I still love our barrel aged program, but I just love being able to have beers for any occasion.
Yeah.
Something that we can be a part of no matter what people are doing, whether it's a wedding, or you're just hanging out in the backyard, tailgating. Like, we have a beer that will fit that bill. And that's where Wisconsinitis came in. We realized our biggest gap in our portfolio was we went from a Pilsner to an Amber. And we were kind of missing this thing in the middle of just that easy drinker with a little more flavor to it. Mm-hmm. So we were playing around with a lot of different recipes, and this one just kind of rose to the top for us.
So the 2012 Grant would have been shaking his head at the blueberry cream ale you guys had on tap.
Oh yeah, no, I would have been featured
I really wanted
myself.
to try.
Yeah,
and
it was delicious.
I've been drinking more cream ales recently too. Like I've been trying to watch my units of alcohol for a week, because I like beer and I like the IPAs.
Yeah,
that you guys make, and I can have a lot of units like that when I'm drinking the IPAs. So
correct.
I appreciate you having a very good 5%er.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so do we. And I think that's it's the changing in trends, and where it's so important for us. Like our mantra and slogan now is like, what Wisconsin drinks. That's what we want to do. We want to be there for that, which means we have to be nimble, because we have to adjust, because every year those trends change a little bit. Right now it's getting very lager heavy, which we personally love brewing the lagers at the brewery. Our pilot system is half full of them at any one time, and it's just easy drinking beers, low ABV. They can still have a lot of flavor, but that flavor is balanced. So you can have a few without getting bored with it, getting overwhelmed by a flavor. We call it 3-pint drinkability. That's kind of been my central guiding thing for any beer that's going to be part of our regular. You got to be able to drink 3 pints of it and enjoy it if it's going to fit in with what we're trying to do. And lagers are perfect for that.
Yep. When I go to your tap room, it seems like you guys have anywhere between 15-ish beers on tap. Different ones.
We actually have 25
more than that.
lines right now.
Excuse me.
Yes.
25 lines. So I'm curious, what is the process when you come up with a new beer? Because it seems like you do have some tap room only ones or test them out, and then if something performs really well, do you put it into the main portfolio, or are they just like seasonal fun stuff? How does that all work?
Yeah, well, there are a bunch of different levels to get to the main beers for us now, which is really nice. We'll always start things in the tap room. We'll brew a batch of beer, and a lot of our team loves coming up with styles too, which is really nice because you get so much more creativity than just 1 or 2 people coming up with these beers after beer. You can kind of get tunnel vision at times, and we'll always try brewing it once. If it's good, we'll put it in the tap room. If it's not, it goes down the drain. No big deal. We'll try again and keep tweaking it. But once in the tap room, then that's where we want to start getting feedback. Our beer tenders are phenomenal at letting us know, here's the release, here's what people thought about it, and then from there we'll decide, well, what do we do with this beer? And we'll always have a meeting afterwards and say, all right, is this tap room like just fine for here? We'll try playing with it and tweaking it. Do we want to advance to the next step, which for us now is our variety packs? We have 3 different variety packs, an Explorer pack that has 2 IPAs in it, or 2 hoppy beers, and then an experimental one with the Wisconsin pack, which is easy drinking beers. Wisconsinitis is in there as well, and then a hop pack. So we'll take these fun beers in the tap room that worked well, and now we'll get to put them in the variety pack, so people throughout Wisconsin get to try them. And we'll get feedback from them on that front through apps like Untapped, but also just people are so great that we always elicit feedback, and they provide it. They'll reach out to us on Facebook or through email and just say, I really love this beer, or not so much. And same with our retailers, they'll let us know what their customers thought. And it's when a beer like that passes kind of muster there that we'll say, all right, can we make this into a seasonal? Can we make this into a year-rounder? So what I love about where we are now is we get to put the beers out there that people already really enjoy and they want more of. And it's a really nice way to go. That's how Wisconsin Ice came about. Our packaging team wanted to make a cream ale. They called it Grand Theft Lawnmower, and it went over really well.
That is a good name.
Isn't that a great name? Yeah.
Probably not as good on the shelves as Wisconsinitis, but the creativity behind it.
We debated for a second, decided, that probably didn't cut it, but we tweaked it some. We had a few different versions we put out in the tap room to kind of see exactly what direction we want this cream ale to go, and ended up with where we are here. But yeah, I went through that whole process of tap room to variety pack to year-rounder for us.
Yep. Going back to the initial business story, so going from essentially 0 to 14,000 barrels of beer, what were the biggest breaks that you got?
We, one has to be Mark Scogan for Festival Foods. We had only done kegs for our first year and a half, and
so you were only distributing the bars your first year and a half? Correct.
Bars and restaurants, kegs only. Kegs, a lot easier. To manufacture beer into a keg, you need all of 3 pumps, a boiler, and a chiller.
Whole canning line.
You're not getting into all the automation that you need to do for a really nice bottling or canning operation. And so we finally started bottling, and it just happened to be before our distributors trade show where all of the buyers from bars and restaurants, liquor stores, and grocery stores were going to be. And I ran into Mark, who was the president and CEO of Festival Foods, at an event that morning in Sheboygan. And we chatted for a while, kind of explained what we were up to. He's like, oh, that's very cool. So you're going to be at the trade show? I said, yes. Like, I'll have my buyer come over. We'll bring you in statewide. I thought, well, I didn't know what to think. Here's this guy who's got so many things going on. Is he going to remember this conversation, 20 minutes later? Best intentions aside, that's fun, but I didn't want to get my hopes up. Sure enough, that night, their buyer comes over to me and says, Grant, Mark said I should come talk to you. We're going to bring you in statewide. What do you have and what should we bring in? And 2 to 3 weeks later, we were in every Festival of Foods. And that just was a great, they're so well respected that it was just an easy one then for us to start talking to other liquor stores about and say, hey, we are in Festival of Foods. Oh, you are? Okay. So it just gave us a little more credibility. And that just really kind of steamrolled our packaging getting out to market. So yeah, we're definitely in his debt. That was a very cool move. And just also shows, they love supporting Wisconsin. They're so great on that front. And it was just them being them.
Yeah. And when did you move into the current tap room in Sheboygan? And then when did you take over the building across the street that has all the production in it?
So that was at the same time. So in about 7 years ago, we moved into that space. So that was a former Coca-Cola facility. And, we were, on our old space, we were putting out like 4,400 barrels on a 10-barrel system, which if you do the math, is just crazy. And we finally needed to kind of grow out of that. So Coca-Cola left town, and they gave us they had these two buildings available. One was a 30,000 square foot production space, and one was a 10,000 foot warehouse that they just kept their trucks in. So for us, we looked at it and realized like this could be something. And quickly moved in there. We got the tap room open right away so that we could at least have some money coming in. And then it took us another 6 months to get the production side going. But we took that over and had a lot of fun.
How big of a risk was that for you as the business owner? It seems like a sizable leap, even if things were going well.
Oh, it was significant. Yes. I mean, our debt was nothing compared to what it was after that. But Wisconsin, and I think a lot of states, there's so many good programs for it, that we were able to work through the SBA. So they were able to help us out with a note. Our city also gave us a loan and took a nice position on it. And, there were a lot of helpers to get us going, but it's a big risk. That was a big space. And what we were trying to do and convert it to didn't lend itself well for kind of capturing the value if it didn't work out. Because, who's going to want a 10,000 square foot warehouse tap room unless you're a brewery? So we really, we went for it. But also we had 4 or 5 years of experience knowing that, we have something here. It wasn't like that was our first space that we were trying to get into and create. So we were confident that we wanted to do it. Wanted to keep growing and seeing where we could take this thing.
And you opened in Milwaukee recently.
We did.
Tell us about that place.
Yeah, so we are sharing a brewery with Hacienda and Door County Brewing Company.
It has been the Hacienda space for several years.
Correct. I think since 2019. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and they did a great job with that remodel, and the building is gorgeous. And we've been friends with them for really since I think 2018. Back in the day.
They're Door County based too, right?
They are. Yep, they're Door County. So up in Bailey's Harbor is where Door County Brewing started. And they've always been. They're just good people. We've been friends with them. I thought their brewers were always some of the best out there, and we got to know each other well. They were making their Door County brand beer at another facility because they didn't have the capacity for it, and things just weren't going well for them there. And they reached out saying, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" And this was right when COVID happened, where we didn't know what was going on, but just to be able to put beer in a tank, I thought, man, I never really wanted to do any contract brewing per se, but let's do it. Let's just let's get through this next year together. And it worked out really well. I mean, their team still makes all the recipes. They're down there. They were very involved, and it was just a great relationship. And we kind of had that for years. And then this past about a year and a half ago, we were just talking one day and joking like, hey, we do everything else together. We should have a tap room together. And about 2 months later, we got back together and goes, so you guys still thinking about that idea of a tap room? Like, yeah, so were we. So we went through all the paperwork and kind of got things squared away. But yeah, it works out really well. Having 3 breweries in a space, one sharing, the risk involved across that because it is such an interesting time in craft beer right now. But 2, there's so much more variety there now. Their Hacienda beers are just kind of iconic in that style and what they're trying to do. The Door County brand is just again these like great Wisconsin-based easy drinkers, and then we kind of bring in the middle there. We have a lot of easy drinkers, our barrel aging program, things like that. So you can really go in now and get a whole lot of different beer. Yeah, I think it's a pretty
Bree
special
and I
space.
like getting flights when we go in there and just kind of going down the line. Good food too.
Very good food. Yes, their chefs is phenomenal.
And really, really good job on the interior design. So make sure to go check that out over on the east side. Can you touch on the current state of the craft brewing industry? It's been difficult. You've managed to grow through it, but
yeah,
what's been going on?
Crafted beer is it's weird right now. It's still good. There are a lot of very loyal craft beer drinkers and those, but man, from 2020 on, it's just. I think the trends, there's been no consistent trend anyone's been able to figure out because I think we're all so unsure of what this next year can bring, starting with COVID and everyone's drinking at home and you invested in your outdoor backyards and, everyone had these really nice setups now for home bars. And I think we all realized how much money you saved by not going out because you had a whole year of it that you realized like what that meant. So then after we got out of it, I think people really kind of changed their buying habits and then inflation hit and costs went up so much that disposable income is still ambiguous on how much we're going to have this year, how much we're going to have next year, that I think people are just being more careful with what they're buying. And craft beer is something that is, well, I think many would call it, recession proof. It's not necessarily recession resistant. There are those ebbs and flows, and like things we notice are like someone who might used to come and buy 4 of our barrel aged beers. They'll still come and buy 4 things, but they might buy 2 barrel aged beers and 2 of our economy variety packs. So they're still getting some good value, they're still buying units, but they're just making sure that they can stretch their dollars more. And I think that's where we are, and what we're seeing right now is, people are being a little more thoughtful about what they're trying to spend. That really nice hazy 4-pack for $18, I'll grab one of those instead of 2, and then something that's a little more easy drinking. And I think that's why Chaos Pattern is doing so well for us. Our tagline for that is haze over hype, because it's a great hazy at an $8 to $9 price point, where you get 6 of them at 12 ounces, 6.5%, so you can still drink a few of them without getting into too much trouble. I think all those things are becoming more and more pertinent to people as they go out and make their purchasing decisions. So we're also competing with more alcohol, more industries. I mean, with like THC drive drinks in Wisconsin now, that's cutting into beer sales. All the RTGs, like the hard Sunny D's, hard Mountain Dews, hard cocktails, those are hitting it. So there's just a lot more options, and it's been an interesting few years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, just we were talking before we got on, craft beer went down double-digit percentages over the last 2 years, yet you guys have grown double-digit percentages over the last 2 years. What do you credit that to?
Oh, our team. Our team first and foremost. They work so hard out there. Our sales team is phenomenal. I'd put them up there with any other sales team in the country. And I think our beer is just, we've worked really hard to make sure that our beer is always consistent. It always is what we say it is. So I think there's a trust value with retailers that, they know that if they bring it in, it's going to sell through, because nobody wants to be stuck with beer on the shelf or kegs that are half full that they're sitting on for 4 weeks. That doesn't make them any money. And I think we've always had the philosophy that we want to be partners with our accounts. It's weird because we sell through a distributor, so there's that, we don't have that direct transaction, but we still want to have that direct relationship with any and all that we can out there. So, for one, our team is out there doing events all the time, trying to support with takeovers or promotions or things like that. And then 2, man, this team, we just really care to make sure that they're doing well. COVID just killed us because you looked at all these bars and restaurants that just struggled, like no one's business. And, we just thought, like, what can we do? Like, how do we help these bars and restaurants? Because there's only so many levers we can pull at that point. And finally came up with an idea to do a beer where, bars, liquor stores, and grocery were doing well, right? Because everyone's going there to bring home beer. We thought, well, let's do a release that's only for bars and restaurants as much as we can. So we would do these canned releases that would only go to bars and restaurants. So people would hopefully come in, buy that 4-pack to go, hopefully grab some food to go, leave a nice tip. And we did that. We called it SOS, partnered with other Wisconsin breweries. Also created something called Curbside All-Star. So anytime you took a picture on this Facebook group that was created of you buying food at a restaurant, you got to enter a raffle for a gift card at another restaurant in your area, things like that, like just things to help each other out. And I think that was a good turning point for us as well, because that drive to help has not left. Like, that is still something that's so important to us. Like, we want to be partners so we all do well together, especially as people are going out less and they're buying less. How do we make sure that our pricing makes sense so you can still make money? How do we make sure that we're not going to do something so esoteric that it's really cool, but what to do at the end of the day? I think that has given us a relationship with those that they'll support us as we keep supporting them.
Yeah, you mentioned the team. Are there certain things that you do? Recruiting and retaining talent is not the easiest thing in today's environment, and especially in your industry as well. It seems like you've done a great job of that. What do you focus on as the owner of the company?
That is a good question. I know it's not as far as saying like we want our team to be a family, but I think the first and foremost, like, we really just try to hire nice people.
It's helpful. Nice people being around nice people.
It is.
You get an asshole in the group. It kind of brings down everything.
Right. You can. It's very true. You can,
especially if you have a small team. I've been there before.
Yeah. You can train a lot of things, and I think our group is just, they're nice and supportive, and we kind of appreciate that we are still a small business, and we're only as good as the rest of our are individuals. So, from our tap room to our production to sales, there can always be those interdepartment rifts or, they're not doing this, they're hurting me. But I feel like our groups just support each other so well, and it just makes each other's lives so much easier because success for one begets success for the other. And we just have a really eager and energetic group that, we, from early on, our internal kind of joke mission was, we just want to grow old making beer together. And I think that's kind of continued. Our goal is to be able to have positions people can do for a long time. So you can have a lot of joy out of it. You can grow in it too, advance. We like cross training. We like bringing people up from inside. And there's paths for just about everyone to figure out what else can you do. So it's not great, I got this job, now what? And I think all those things are meaningful and matter. And we just try to take care of everyone. It's the hardest thing, just knowing that we're responsible for 47 people and their families, and what does that mean, and how impactful is that? And I know it's something I've tried not to take for granted. Growing up, I always knew that at my dad's place, we'd meet all the individuals who've been there forever, and I always just kind of thought like, well, it's because these guys are working that I get to go to the movies, and for whatever reason that was just an important. I don't know how I got it. I'm sure he instilled that in me in some way or another, sneakily, but. Yeah, that was always so poignant for me. Like it's all the people who are working that let this company be successful, and we couldn't do it without any of them.
What do you see for the future of Three Sheeps? Got a great brand on a great trajectory. Are there certain things you're trying to do or trying to expand to?
So Wisconsin has this weird 20,000 barrel ceiling for whatever reason. We've had several breweries who kind of get there, get close, flirt, and then kind of slowly shrink. And I think it's that threshold of like you have enough beer everywhere, you're a fixture of it, that if you can break through that, I think it has a much better chance of then being here for a long time. You can drink the beer because your father drank the beer. That's what I'd love Three Sheeps to be. I'd love to be here where someone was growing up watching their parents drink Three Sheeps, and now they're drinking Three Sheeps because of it. I think that would be the marker for me. Keep growing, get into this for a long time, and just be a fixture in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Looking back over the last 12 years, what are you most proud of when it comes to the company?
I think it's just all the people that I've gotten to work with. We've had so many. It's fun. Our turnover is next to none over these 12 years. I mean, it's been incredible. We've had on the production side, we've had 2 people leave to start their own breweries that are both doing extremely well right now. I'm sorry, 3 who've done that. I love seeing people who are growing and becoming more capable, and then if something else finds them, then they're able to take that, what we were able to kind of work together here and kind of build on and get them to advance and kind of keep prospering. And we have a lot of good success stories there for those who have chosen to leave for A, B, or C reason. But those internally, it's just working with people who I've now worked with for 6, 7, 8 years. It's pretty incredible for being a 12-year-old company to have so many people who've been here for half of that.
Yeah.
It's fun. We all did it together, and it's nice seeing what the results have been.
That's awesome. I guess last Three Sheeps related question before we move on to some Wisconsin ones. How often do you drink beer, and do you have to put any guardrails on yourself being surrounded by so much good beer on a daily basis?
It definitely changes things. I mean, during the day, we have a lot of rules about it, of course, because there's usually beer waiting on my desk at 8 a.m. We're always we're always sampling a lot of different things, and things for the centrifuge and things like that. Like there's always sampling, but we kind of make sure that we're limiting what we're doing after doing such activities. On days where we're emptying barrels for like a big barrel day, like Wolf, we'll empty 60 to 80 bourbon barrels, and we have to try every one. And 60, 80 samples, even if you're just doing a 1 ouncer.
Those are high ABV
14% beers
too.
We're ordering pizza and you're not touching equipment for the rest of that day. But I don't know. I think it changes how you appreciate it. I think some of the gloss wears off of what a cool release coming out or things like that are. But I think it's also a steadier appreciation of, like for me, a really well-made Pilsner is something that I will just, wow, this is just perfectly produced. Those are things that get me excited these days. And on the other side, I mean, I love all forms of flavored alcohol. You know, Friday night is often wine night at our house. You know, good spirit is great to come by. I love a good Manhattan or Wisconsin old fashioned. But yeah, I think we also get to see so much of, there's so much beautifulness in what alcohol is, but there's also the other side, and we see it firsthand. So it just kind of keeps it in foremind to make sure that, like, all right, we're here, we're enjoying it. Let's watch after each other and make sure that we're all doing it smartly.